This is episode 335 of Jumblethink.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview dreamers, makers, innovators, and influencers all about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. Our guest on today's show is Rana Gujral. More about Rana in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, if you've never subscribed to Jumblethink, head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and click that magical subscribe button. To make it even easier, if you head on over to jumblethink.com, you'll find links to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, and more. Now let's join today's conversation. Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jumblethink. My name's Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have a very fun conversation for you today. Now, we don't typically have return guests on the show. There are just too many incredible, interesting people to interview to have a lot of repeat guests. Although there are times where we do have a repeat guest, and today is one of those shows. Our guest today is Rana Gujral. He was on episode 224 of Jumblethink. We get to talk about a lot of fun things from that episode and continue the conversation, and specifically talk about how data can be used to help solve the problems that we're facing with coronavirus and much more. So let me tell you about our friend and our guest today, Rana Gujral. He's an entrepreneur, a speaker, investor, and the CEO of Behavioral Signals. Behavioral Signals is an enterprise software company that delivers a robust and fast-evolving emotional AI engine, which introduces emotional intelligence into speech recognition technology. Let's go ahead and join the conversation we had with Rana Gujral. Rana, it's good to have you back.
Thanks, Michael. It's a real pleasure to be back.
I was looking back. It's not very often that we have a guest back on the show. I was looking back at when our show went live with you. It was episode 224, April 4th of 2019. So just over a year ago from the time we're recording this, we had your interview and conversation and shared it to the world then. So it's good to have you back and talk more about the world of AI, behavioral signals and what you're doing there. Talk about this new world of life as we know it and how it's changed because of COVID-19. Super excited to chat with you.
Thanks, Michael. And yeah, what a new world we are living in. Interesting times.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about, typically we would talk about, your background, how you got into this. People can go back and listen to that in the episode we did before. Instead, I want to hear a little bit about how the changes of COVID-19, coronavirus, how it's impacted you as an individual, how it's impacted your family, how it's impacted your business and what you're doing with AI.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's a really interesting topic of discussion. And that's a question that I see a lot of people are asking themselves. It's how's this changed us across the board as individuals, as families, and there's a lot to reflect on. And I've been, like a lot of others, I've sort of been reflecting on what do I like about this? What do I not like about this? What have I learned about myself and about our company and about the ecosystem? And most importantly, the changes that we're seeing in front of our eyes, what part of that is going to be remaining and have a lasting impact versus it's just temporary. And as soon as the quarantine lifts, we're going to get back to normal, and which is what. And so I think there's a lot there. I mean, on the personal side, I mean, I think, it's been a blessing. I mean, like a lot of other entrepreneurs, I've been sort of on the go, pretty much nonstop travel. And with being grounded comes the blessing of rediscovering things around you, which were right in front of your eyes, but you haven't sort of paid attention to it. It's been a blessing to spend precious time with the family and discovering small nuances of behaviors in your kids that you've been like not paying attention to, both good and bad. I mean, and I think I think it's a mix of all of that. It's also sort of realizing what you actually value. Who do you actually call, right? I mean, when you're when you're home and you want to speak with someone, who do you actually call and who do you actually not care about speaking with, even if you haven't for the last 4 weeks? But before quarantine, you were speaking with them every day or every
Wow.
week, and
Yeah.
now it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? And so, and I think it kind of puts things in perspective across the board on a personal level, and I think a lot of us will come out. I think there's also certainly sort of a mindset impact as a consumer in terms of what people will continue to spend on versus what they won't spend on, and impact on businesses in terms of how they operate. Certainly, we were discussing this internally within our company and across certain other business circles that are we really being productive or not? And if the answer is yes, then why was this hesitation around doing remote meetings previously? Because I recall flying in for a 2-hour board meeting, and because it was deemed essential. I mean, it was essential to be in person, or you wouldn't have an effective board meeting. And now we've had those meetings, and they're just as effective. So would we still fly in for the next board meeting when this hits? Or will this now forever change? I mean, questions like that. I mean, do we need those satellite offices for those 4 or 5 people that remain that utilize it once in a while? Probably not. And I mean, I think there's going to be a plethora of ripple effects that's going to come up. It's a multifaceted question that encompasses everything. I mean, in terms of where we spend, who we value, who we speak to, how we operate as a business, and also a lot of that has pointed a glaring light on where we are, what our strengths and weaknesses are as a business. And it's an opportunity, just as it's a crisis. It's also an opportunity, and I think it's something to really pay attention to, pay close attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. I think in a lot of ways, this is causing us to rethink what we value, what's significant, how we work. I was talking to the chief editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, and he was even sharing how this has changed how they work, and the fact that they go, maybe we don't need this office. Now, there is something nice about being face-to-face with people. Definitely want to get back to the place of not being socially distanced from the people we love and that we love to work with when we don't have to be. And, there's a lot we're learning about this. I'm curious, you run a company called Behavioral Signals, is a platform. It is a tool that relies a lot on emotional AI. How is AI and the technologies around emotion, around personality playing into where we can take this in the future?
There are some interesting things I suspect will emerge out of this. AI tends to be seen as this magical, mythical thing. At the core, it is essentially a capability that we are trying to build around specific things that at this moment of time humans are just better at, or better at doing today. And so we're taking those capabilities and we're codifying that, and we're allowing the software system to get to the same level of those abilities. And so, as glorified as that sounds, it's really automation, right? I mean, it's taking the mundane stuff, or the stuff that we would rather not do, and having a non-human entity do it. It's a software, it's a human, or it's a robot or a machine. And so I think one thing that we've realized is that we are going to start to accelerate that process. There's going to be an increased reliance on machines and robots to do things that we were just not able to do in the last few weeks. We were not able to collect orders, we were not able to make deliveries, or we were not able to go interact or do something because there was a fear of a human interaction or touch. And so I think those things are now imbibed in our psyche, and I see a lasting effect from that. Especially, aspects of voice interaction. It was a big thing before this because it wasn't necessarily because people didn't want to touch things, But because speaking is easier and speaking is more intrinsic, it's the most primal form of communication. So that is why there was this whole, this sort of flow of different experiences centered around voice, because it's the most natural way for us to communicate with things. And that's why we wanted to speak to the car versus go touch the different controls in the dashboard and make those adjustments, because it's easier. But now, so for example, I was just speaking to someone about this, is you see these kiosks at McDonald's, these self-order kiosks, which you could go to. And I've been seeing them prop up in Asia many years ago. And it just happens to be that right around in the Bay Area, you're seeing them in most McDonald's. But I don't recall when I was there previously using it. I'd still go stand in line and speak to a human, because that was my preference. I mean, I just ignore it. I was like, it's there. I don't want to use it. Yeah. And even though there's two people in front of me at the lineup at the counter, and that kiosk is empty, and I still not use it. And now probably that would be my first preference. I'll go there. I'll go there because that's just a field I would feel safer. And so that's just a psyche thing, right? And it's really, really powerful. And when that switch happens, people move fast. As you've seen it, in terms of sort of how people are using these video conferencing and remote work tools. Yeah. Now that we're accustomed to using it, you'd see a massive shift there. So for us, I mean, I think one of the things that we are focused on is enhancing those interactions, taking those voice interactions to the next level. Yeah. Our science focuses on going beyond the verbal communication and focusing on how something is being said, the intent and meaning behind the words, and understanding the cognitive state of mind. And that is a very core piece of making a conversation be a conversation. Yeah. And so currently, that's entirely missing in the human to machine side. And we feel that there's a lot of value creation that can happen there. And so I think, I'm really, really curious to see how this will play out. And we're happy to, help with that process.
One of the last things I want to talk about in this first segment, and in the second segment, we're going to be talking more about behavioral signals and kind of some shifts and changes and new products that you're working on over there. There's been this debate in the world of robotics and AI, in the world of human resources versus technology-driven resources, whether that's robotics, whether that's replacing someone or enhancing their ability through using technology. In COVID-19, one of the interesting questions we've had, or conversations that have popped up, and Andrew Yang was talking about this during the primaries for the DNC, was this question of, as technology grows and it requires less human touch, is there a place that we require minimum income for individuals, for families, to offset the change of the environment and culture? With COVID-19, we've seen, the stimulus pack and all of those kind of things come in to bring in some kind of basic income for people, especially people who have lost their jobs. With the changes of AI, with the evolution of robotics, Lego, great example, they have a lot of robotics that run their manufacturing instead of humans there. How do we see this technology impacting our world? How do we see it impacting individuals? How does this free us up? How does it hold us back? What are some of the things that specifically AI is allowing us to do that a human wouldn't be able to do, and how do we respond to that shift?
That is a really powerful question, and coincidentally, we were having this conversation and this dialogue with a media house recently when a reporter asked me this question. And I'll tell you that there's many different lenses from which to view this. I mean, there's that sort of pragmatic, capitalist, entrepreneurial lens of, hey, shifts happen like they've happened in the past, from moving to an agricultural economy to an industrial economy, then moving from an industrial economy to a services economy. And when those shifts happen, there's a portion of jobs that get wiped out, and a new set of jobs that come to market.
Yeah.
With that, they're winners and they're losers in the workforce. The new jobs that come to market are in very high demand, and the ones with those skills are very well suited to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And the ones who are losing the jobs that they were skilled at and are not able to keep up with the shift are at a losing end. And overall, economically, I mean, the society wins, and at a macro level, it's a good thing. And so, I mean, the advent of robotics and AI is essentially taking the services economy to the next level, right? And essentially, with that, as I said, I mean, a lot of this is simply automation, just like the industrial economy did from agriculture side of things. And so it's automating certain aspects of services economy. That's what we're doing now. So it's in some ways, we're applying the industrial economy paradigm on top of the services economy, and we're saying let's even automate the brain work of certain things, and then let's use robotics and AI to do that. So with that, a tremendous amount of opportunities are being created in specialized skills that if you have those skills, you'd really benefit from that new world. But that being said, there's going to be a huge impact on a big portion of our working population because those jobs ain't needed anymore. There's less trucks to be driven because there are drone deliveries or self-driven cars, and there's less clerical staff needed at stores because everything is automated and self-checkout. And who takes care of those people? And I think that's and I feel that entrepreneurial society and corporations and the government have a collective responsibility, and everyone needs to sort of contribute towards either retraining or repurposing those skills, and even sort of offering certain protections in certain areas to give people time. Because what we're seeing is that a lot of these shifts that have happened historically have taken a long time to happen. And so people have had time to react to it. Now these shifts are very drastic. Like, it's not a matter of decades anymore. It's a matter of a few years, even months, when drastically certain industries get wiped out and new industries get created. And you can't react to it. I mean, most people can't react to it that quickly. And so I think certain, as much as I'm against sort of, adding more rules and regulations and legislations, but I feel that's a responsible thing to do. And I think whether it comes in terms of, some minimum wage protections or even certain training guidelines and skilled reassignment guidelines that the corporations who are capitalizing on these new trends have to take the burden on. And contribute that back into the society, because I think net we're going to have a lot more new jobs as well. So I mean, that's always the argument that's being used is like, hey, new jobs are being created, and so would you rather us not create new jobs? No, yes, but you also have to retrain the workforce,
right?
By doing it, because that new jobs are for other people, and what about these people who are unable to react to that situation? So I think it's a very deep question. It's also a very complicated, answer. One of the things that we're also looking at is that previously, we've lived through, almost like 5 to 6 decades of globalization, intense globalization, and that has had a very different play into what free market economy actually means. And I think some of those things are shifting. Where people are looking to be more self-sufficient in terms of like, hey, what happens when this happens? I mean, you can't even get medications inside the country. And I think all of those questions are now being looked at. And I'd say, there needs to be a thorough discussion on this. I mean, I think we need to come together and really deeply look into that question and then come up with a game plan.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. I'm sure we could go hours and hours and hours talking about this. The other thing I've noticed is that when we embrace certain technologies, we're seeing kind of the resurgence of the maker movement, whether it's CNC machines, whether it's 3D printing. We're seeing all of these technologies free up people to do passion projects. Do you think that's part of the role of technology, is to remove the cogs from life, the individuals who are filling a job that's really repetitive and kind of silly that they're doing it, and allow them the freedom to create what they want instead of, do the traditional 9 to 5?
Yeah, I mean that's what technology does. I mean, at the core, technology is a tool that is here to serve us,
Mm-hmm.
and it's here to serve us either by taking away things that we'd rather not do, or by doing things that we're doing today and do it better and more effectively with less errors. And the promise is that it leads to a better user experience. It leads to a better lifestyle. It leads to newer capabilities. And so I think that's a role of technology. That's a role of progress, and that can't be stopped. And so, for example, if there's a better way to drive with lesser incidences, which makes it safer for everybody, then that needs to be explored. That needs to be implemented. And, but that being said, then we need to sort of understand the impact of those technology implementations, and then be ready to react to it and be ready to be prepared for it. But yeah, I mean, I feel, obviously I'm biased. So, I mean, just a little bit, that technology is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I think we are better off with technology, and we're better off with some of these shifts because at the end, collectively, you always have to look at the macro picture, right? I mean, you have to look at the overall big equation of sort of are we collectively winning or not? And I think we collectively win with technology. And it's a friend. It's not our enemy.
Yeah. Well, as we move towards the end of this first segment, how are you finding purpose in what you do?
One, you have to have a vision of what you want to be and what you want to achieve. And the purpose of what you do needs to be anchored and grounded around that. If you don't have it, you're just doing stuff, and you're just sort of, moving the needle, not necessarily towards a specific goal. And so for me personally, and for us as a company, we have a very strong view of sort of how we may want to, contribute to the changes around us in a positive way, in an impactful way. And what is our vision as a company? And so that's how we find purpose. We find purpose by continuously doing things that move the needle towards that vision, towards that goal, and making sure that we stay true to that.
Now, for you, what is one challenge you're currently working to overcome?
I believe that question is for me as a person, not necessarily as a company, but whether that would be a different question. But yeah, I mean, personal challenge, I think it's just to, adjust to not being around other humans. I mean, right now I'm really struggling with that. There's a lot that I do requires me to interact with people and sort of feel their vibe and connect with them in person, and learn from them and ideate with them. And I'm adjusting with that new paradigm of sort of how to continue with that learning and continue with that progression, and not get disconnected and not get too siloed in my thinking. And what I feel is one of the side effects of what this distributed work life has sort of created is that we've become a little bit more transactional. I feel that way, because you're not going to have, I mean, even though people are doing it, you don't have impromptu Zoom meetings with somebody. There's an agenda of the Zoom meeting, but you meet people impromptu. And so when there's an agenda, you're becoming transactional. And so there's no transaction to be had, then you're not having those discussions or those interactions. And I think, I fear that is going to be a bad thing down the line. And that was already a problem with the society, that we're becoming very transactional, we're becoming less empathetic. And I see that would be one big downside of sort of how we grow, into this in the future.
What's the next big dream, idea, or goal you have?
I've been really hoping that I'll write the book that I want to write. Cool. I've been sort of planning to do that for the last few years, but as you know, it's not possible when you're on the plane all the time. And so with this, I've been really trying to put a plan around that. There's a few ideas, there's a few set of learnings or my journey that I'd like to put together in a book, and that's something I hope that comes to fruition in the near future.
We're going to take a break right here, and when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. We're going to dive deeper into what's happening over at Behavioral Signals, what they're creating, and some new things that they have that they're working on. We'll be right back. Chasing big ideas and dreams is hard to do. It's even harder when you try to do it all alone. But where do you go to find a tribe, a community of people who are like you, who have big ideas and dreams and are working hard to create them? Here at Jumblethink, we wanted to help, and that's why we launched the brand new Jumblethink Facebook group, a place where you can ask your questions, share your victories, and really wrestle through the hard things of entrepreneurship or creativity or ideas. How do you find it? How do you connect? Head on over to jumblethink.com/group. It will take you right to the Facebook group, completely free to join. So click that join button and join a growing community of people just like you who are in the process of turning those dreams and ideas into reality. Now let's return to today's conversation with Rana Gujral. We are back with Rana. All right, before we get going, how can people find Behavioral Signals? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, the easiest way to connect with me is send me an email. It's very easy. My first and last name at gmail.com. That's my personal email, so you can get me there. Or if you don't remember that, go to my website. Again, it's ranagujral.com, and then you can connect with me from that point on. Behavioral Signals, we're on all aspects of different social media. We want to interact with academics. We want to interact with businesses. We want to interact with other leading voices in the voice interaction, voice first movement. And so we're really open to a dialogue. So feel free to reach out on any of those mediums.
All right, we're going to dive into Behavioral Signals in a second. But before we do that, you mentioned that you have a dream of writing a book. What's the book that you want to write?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ideas that I'd like to bring to that equation. One is my reflections and my journey, sort of a comparative assessment between the corporate world and the startup world, and I've been in both, and I see a lot of people making that transition and struggle with that, and there's a massive aspect of mindset that is never taught or never discussed. And a lot of that, I'd say, is politically incorrect to even talk about. And the things that you're actually absolutely discouraged from doing when you're in a corporate umbrella versus when you're actually, being an entrepreneur in a startup, that one needs to really reflect on. So I feel that, there's stories to be told there that I'd love to put together.
Let's dive into a little bit about Behavioral Signals. We've talked about it before, but for those who haven't caught that previous episode, and if you haven't, after you're done listening to this, go back and listen to episode 244. Really cool conversation where we dive into some more of the nitty-gritty of this. Talk to us about Behavioral Signals and what you do.
For sure. So at Behavioral Signals, first off, we're a deep tech AI research company that was founded out of USC and Sail Labs. And we've been on this quest of taking the voice interactions and voice communication to the next level. Our superpower is around deducing intelligent and actionable insights from conversations. focusing on the pitch and tonal variance, and which goes far beyond the traditional text analysis. So communication itself, like human communication, is a complex process which depends on not only the words being spoken, but as well as how they're expressed. And that's the part that we focus on. So we excel at distinguishing signals from speech data using our technology, and we unravel emotions, we unravel behaviors, we even go as far as predict intent even by the signals, by processing the signals that we unravel from these conversations, and that's a core focus. What we do with that is we take those capabilities, and we have some very advanced products and tools that we bring to market, and we apply those in two parallel tracks. The first is augmenting human-to-human interactions. So this is where we're delivering new use cases and KPIs that optimizes these interactions, that range from building very sophisticated sales acceleration tools, first call optimization with real-time feedback for agents, behavioral coaching, AI-based audit engines, et cetera, even intent predictions. And the second track is the human-to-machine side, which is taking the human-to-human model and then applying it to the human-to-machine and building emotionally and socially aware voice assistants or chatbots or social robots, and essentially giving the non-human side or the inanimate entity side the same abilities the human counterpart has in terms of understanding the cognitive state of mind or how something is being said, outside of just what is being said. And so those are the different things that we focus on. That's what we do.
So those are the things you do. How do those actually apply in the real world? How do those work into, whether it's a business or personal devices? How does that technology enhance? How does that help?
Yeah, so there's a wide variety of application areas, but let me just give you a couple examples from each side. So, for example, on the sales acceleration side, our engine, which is listening to and analyzing a conversation between an agent and a client, is deciphering various cues and guiding the agent real time as the conversation progresses. So, for example, hey, you're speaking too fast, or you're speaking too slow, or you sound angry, or the client sounds angry. Or, hey, I'm predicting if the client will buy or not buy, or the debt holder will pay or not pay. All of those things happen real time, with the help of our engine that's analyzing the conversation as it's progressing real time,
right.
With a client. So that's one example. The other example would be taking something very sophisticated, like a behavioral profile pairing engine, and using that to create behavioral profiles of participants in a voice interaction, such as between a debt holder and debt collector, by processing the previous audio and focusing on the pitch and tonal variance, and recommending matches, which means matching the right agent with the right client, which then maximizes the outcome of those conversations. So when we've done that in debt collection situations or loan restructuring conversations, we see a 20% improvement in outcomes. When banks use that capability that prescribes the matches that we recommend. So that's an example on the human to human side.
So in this case, the technology isn't necessarily doing the work of the engagement; it's doing more of an assessment job, where it's assessing performance, variance of how somebody responds, how they could do better, and then giving them feedback as maybe that person on the phone or a customer service rep on how they could increase their performance or better empathize or relate or convert the outcome that they want?
Yeah, all of that. But let me simplify that a little bit.
Okay.
So for example, as humans, we all have a natural ability to understand the state of mind, and that is actually multimodal. When we're looking at assessing emotions or behaviors, we're looking at the facial expressions, we're looking at the body language, we're looking at the words that you're choosing to use. But for the most part, the best mode of assessing that is to really cue in on the tone of voice, which is how you're saying something. And that's almost wired in. We don't pay attention to that. It happens automatically in our brain. So, like this conversation that we're having, we're both trying to assess it almost sort of, behind the scenes, and we're not really paying attention. Our brains are doing that already for us.
Yeah.
And then we're reacting to each other based on that. And science has proven that, voice is the most superior mode of deducing that those capabilities, and on the voice, and it's not necessarily the words that you're choosing to use, but how you're speaking those and how you're emphasizing the pitch and tonal variance. So that's what makes a conversation possible. Now, so if you're speaking with a client, obviously the agents have that ability naturally, but when you're taking the 100th call in the day, you're tuning those cues out. So if you have agent that's have a engine that's helping you or reminding you about those cues, which is like, hey, pay attention right now. The client sounds angry, which you might be ignoring, or you sound angry. You may not be realizing, but you sound angry right now, or you're speaking just too fast, or you're missing the cue to buy. You're getting the cue that the client is going to buy or not buy, and you're ignoring that. And so those are the things that, one would expect a very seasoned agent to automatically have in control. But when you're a call center agent, you're doing like the 50th or 100th call a day, you're missing all those cues out. So, I mean, that's a very simple way of helping.
Yeah. So is in that case, is it giving them real-time feedback as they're doing it, prompts like, hey, this person just said this, you need to go down this road? Or is it kind of more of a retroactive, kind of looking back and reassessing from a learning standpoint versus an active engagement?
It can be both. Okay. And it is our solutions deliver both. So there's a variety of use cases that manifest themselves in the post-call analysis, where you're listening and analyzing previous conversations, and then looking for certain behaviors and certain engagement attributes in terms of, hey, which one of these were good conversations and bad conversations? What resulted in a good and bad? Per agent or per department or per conversation, and then using that to coach the agents, using that to also find certain issues of compliance around sort of how certain things were done which shouldn't have been done that way. And so, those are the use cases around behavioral coaching and compliance, and monitoring agent engagement and customer satisfaction. So, sort of measuring the customer satisfaction on all those calls that were analyzed, and sort of flagging out the problem areas. So those are all sort of done after the fact. Because the conversations are already done, and now the engine's processing those conversations, after they've been completed. But we also have real-time capabilities where you could apply the engine that's sitting and processing and analyzing as the conversation's happening live. And so there you're getting those notifications in front of your dashboard or screen as you're speaking, as the conversation's progressing, and you're reacting to that in real time. And so if you're getting, for example, we have a very advanced intent prediction engine that can predict if in a conversation between a debt holder and a debt collector, it can predict if a debt holder will pay or not pay. And that's not a percentage probability. That's a binary prediction. So yes will pay or no will pay. That's how we make that prediction. And so within the first 30 seconds of the conversation, our engine can make that prediction. And keep in mind that we know nothing about that participant. We don't know who the person is, the amount of debt the person owes, or the credit score or anything else. Nothing. And even without all that information, within the first 30 seconds of processing the conversation, we can make a binary prediction that's over 82% accurate.
Wow.
And proven in the industry. And so that's how powerful that is. And then the agent can do what the agent needs to do with that information, which is like, hey, the engine made a prediction within the first 30 seconds of your call that the person will pay or not pay. Now you do what you have to do with that piece of information. And keep in mind that that prediction is generally 82% accurate. So you can take that to the bank and we can prove it. I mean, it's easy to prove too, because I mean, a lot of our clients that deal in that industry, they take calls from the past. They take like 10,000 calls from the past, and then have the engine process it and make a prediction, and then they match it to the actual outcomes, which only they know about.
Wow.
And they come back with, how does this work? And yeah,
you're like, it's magic.
It's magic, exactly.
One of the things that's new that you're offering is behavioral profile pairing, which matches agents with customer leads to meaningfully improve call outcomes and better customer experiences. That seems a little magical to me, because here on the surface, it looks like, hey, you're pairing the right agent to the right person, but you don't really have data on that customer yet necessarily on that first call. So talk to us a little bit about how profile pairing works and what it does.
Right. And profile pairing is a very, very interesting use case. So it's ideally suited for a use case where certain agents are repeatedly calling the same group of people.
Okay.
So a debt collection scenario or an advanced investment selling, like an investment bank scenario, is what comes to mind. Because you have a group of people that you're reaching out to repeatedly, periodically for something. And so how our engine works is that it takes, to get started, we take a group of those recent conversations from, say, the last few weeks, not too far back, but the last 2-3 weeks. And these are conversations that could be in any language. It could be in Russian or Greek or Korean, doesn't matter. We do not need to convert the audio into text. So we maintain the privacy of the conversation. Our engine doesn't care about what the person's saying. And in fact, the language can be it's a foreign language, so we don't even have an underlying ASR that converts that audio into text. And so with that processing, we create a behavioral profile of the agent and the participants in the conversation, which are basically the clients that you're trying to reach after. And then based on those behavioral attributes, we create matches. So we essentially say agent X should speak with these group of people because the behavioral attributes match, and you'll get better results when this agent speaks with these people versus any random agent speaking with any random client or sort of or arbitrary. So for example, when we implement this solution at banks, which are having these conversations around loan restructurings of people who are falling behind on their payments and, their non-performing loans, which is a big problem across the world right now. We see that when used with the recommended matches that we have created by analyzing previous audio interactions, the improvement in outcomes is as much as 20%, which is a massive outcome.
Huge.
Like, so for example, we actually did one implementation with a national bank of a European country, and there the upside that we created was $1.5 million per agent per year, which was $300 million for that bank. So every agent that was using this, based on our matching, was able to collect $1.5 million of additional revenues in loan restructurings. And that's how powerful that is, because magical things happen when you're connected with the right person on the other side. The question is, how do you actually do that? I mean, are you going to require their life histories to make that match, or all that? And what we're able to do is we're able to do those matches very quickly without necessarily getting any access to any private information, and simply by listening to and analyzing the previous audio interactions. And even there, we do not convert the audio into text, and that's our superpower.
Something that strikes me about this AI versus some of the other AIs, a lot of AIs are based on big data. More information tells you more data sets so that you can make determinations. But it seems like your AI, this AI, while it's data-driven, information-driven, there's a huge piece of this that is psychologically driven and understanding the way people operate, the way people think, the way people respond. Talk to us a little bit about mixing data and psychology to get outcomes, because it seems like if you were just data-driven, you wouldn't get results. If you were just psychology-driven, you're marrying the two to create this AI. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we definitely do need both. I can't say that data is not important for us. It's incredibly important, but our founders are very renowned academics who've spent, at least 2 decades, if not more, researching minutia aspects of how people interact with each other in specific aspects of signal processing. A lot of our early research was done around deducing insights around autistic kids who struggle, from an emotional interaction standpoint and from a behavioral therapy standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so all of that research has led us to really understand how people interact, mm-hmm. and how emotions and behaviors play a role in conversations. And science has proven that if you so there are 2 things to note. One is you can extract a lot of emotions and behavioral signals in a voice interaction. That's one thing to remember. Second is, if once you're able to do that and you understand the context of the discussion and the conversation, mm-hmm. you can actually predict how the participants are going to react in the near future or the actions that they will take. So in some ways, you can actually predict their intent. And so we have built our engines on top of that. So for example, now that we understand the participants and their frame of mind and the state of mind and the context of the conversation, we can make a prediction in terms of what the person intends to do in the near future. So it's not necessarily, a lie detector test. It's not. So we're not saying the person's being truthful or not being truthful. We're just saying what is the actual intent. And so with that, magical things can happen. But to do that, so there's a lot of science, there's a lot of research from psychologists, and we use a lot of different methods. We can go into the gory technical details. But then in order to validate that and build models that can be used in real life and build models that are unbiased, you need lots of data. You need tons and tons of data. And so you need data from a variety of different sources, so that you're not building a very specialized model just for one specific context. And so we've been lucky and fortunate that we've been working with a diverse set of companies in diverse set of verticals, and we've had access to lots of diverse data, and I've had taken our science around psychology and emotion recognition and applied to that data and to refine our models to get to the levels of accuracy that we have today.
So cool, and really crazy to think about how many different aspects of what goes into creating something like this. And it's much more than just technology. There's a lot that goes into creating something like this.
A lot. Yep, I agree.
We're going to take a break right here, and when we come back, it's rapid fire questions. With over 300 episodes of the Jumblethink podcast, there's a conversation for everyone. But recently we had a really cool conversation that I hope you will check out. Our guest was Dario Satui. He founded 2 wineries in the Napa Valley and also built an authentic Italian-style castle right in Napa Valley. Not only do we talk about his journey of creating amazing wine brands, building a castle, but he also gives us insights about taking those crazy big dreams and ideas that you have and actually making them into reality. Head on over to jumblethink.com or wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to join us and listen into the conversation we had with Dario Satui. Now let's jump into rapid fire questions.
Levez seulement le bras pour mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le contact.
We are back with Rana Gujral. All right, we're going to jump into rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So having grown up in an Indian family of very proud doctors, this was already decided for me. So it didn't work out, for various reasons. And there's a whole story there. But I didn't really have a plan of what I wanted to be when I grow up. I was told what I was supposed to be.
Yeah. Wow. What is one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
Yeah, I'd say if you wait for when you're ready, you'd be waiting for the rest of your life. And if you have the big idea, if you have the dream, you need to understand that the way to do it is you need to jump into it and you need to start to address the most glaring gaps, and there'll be tons of gaps.
Wow.
So you need to just go and you need to start.
What is one change you'd like to see in the world?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah.
I'd say more empathy.
Yeah.
I think we're seriously lacking in empathy, and I really would like to see more of that in the world.
I think that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused a lot of people to rethink that to an extent too. So hopefully it's the beginning of a tidal wave to come.
Right. Hopefully.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I'd like my legacy to be about relationships, friendships, new ideas, and positive impact.
Where do you find inspiration?
Everywhere. I mean, I make it a point to connect with and speak with a couple of new people every week and get inspiration from the most unexpected of sources. So if you look closely, I mean, normal people who you'd expect to be very plain and uninspiring have had the most incredible journeys that we can learn from and be inspired by.
What is one book you think every dreamer should read?
Yeah, so this was tough. I mean, I have to really think about this, but I'd say I really like Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy. It's a recent book.
Yeah.
And so, it talks about wherever you are, whatever you're doing, your worst enemy already lives inside you, which is your ego. And precisely what makes us so promising as thinkers, doers, creatives, and entrepreneurs, what drives us to the top of those fields, makes us vulnerable to this dark side of the psyche. And so I feel, especially for dreamers, you should read this book.
How do you define success?
Have an impact, contribute to the society in a meaningful, positive way, and make a positive difference. And I think if you're able to do that, you're successful.
What is one trend you are currently excited about?
Yeah, the current trend of efficient distributed teams coming together and being productive is, I believe, here to stay. And I think the quarantine's busted the fallacy that 9 to 5 in a physical office is the most productive way for a group of people to get results. So I think I'm really excited to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think the same question could be applied to education and how we're rethinking education right now. The same kind of thing.
Right,
like,
totally.
I've heard so many parents, we homeschool, but we've heard so many parents say, oh, we were able to get their entire school day done in like 2 hours. What are they doing all day at school? So it's just interesting. Right. I love education, but it's, I think, something we need to rethink right now. What is one habit you find helpful in your life?
I'd say reflection. I reflect often and regularly. I reflect on how the week went, how I reacted to the situations that presented me, and how I fared. I reflect on what I did well, what I could improve on. I also reflect on how I'm changing my mindset, my perspectives, my ambitions, my goals, even my likes and dislikes. And it's a process of constant calibration. And I find this very, very helpful.
What is one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
I'd say that piece of advice that I give to all young people, especially in their teens and 20s, it's don't play it safe. It's not worth the risk.
I love that. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
Who knows? I don't think I'd be a doctor. But
you've already checked that off the list of not possible options.
Not possible options. I don't think I have the mental discipline that profession needs. I mean, I'd like to think I'd be a news anchor. I think that's what I would be doing. Yeah.
And our final rapid fire question: what is one dream you are still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Yeah, I'd say it's the book dream. I think that's definitely a goal and a dream, and I hope it materializes in the future.
As we wrap up, we always like to leave our guests have a final thought. For all of us listening today, what would you like to say to us?
I'll say, especially to your dreamer part of the audience, everything you want is on the other side of failure.
So good. So good. Rana, it's always good to catch up with you, to hear what's going on in your world, and to get some perspective that is impacting the lives of so many of us. So thanks for taking time out and sharing your story.
Thank you, Michael. It's a real pleasure to be on the show, and thank you for having me again.
Once again, we want to thank Rana Gujral for taking time out and being on the show with us. You can check out his links in the episode notes. Now, here is my thought for you today. Innovation often costs us something. In the case of AI, sometimes it means that somebody who used to do a job might do a job differently, or they might move into a new career or position. In the case of robotics, it's the same thing. The robot might replace the human. But that doesn't mean that our lives are over. What it often means is that new possibilities are in front of us, new opportunities to step into a new future that we are creating. That's my challenge. Don't be afraid of innovating. Don't be afraid of changing things. There are things that become sacred that really aren't all that sacred. They're just comfortable. They're safe. They're routine. Today, look at your life, and maybe there's a routine. Maybe there's a status quo thing that you do, a system that worked for a long time but needs to be thrown out the window and recreated for a new future. Take that time today to think about how you could innovate, how you could grow, and how maybe the patterns of life today are actually holding you back from the future of tomorrow. That's my challenge. I hope it encourages you. Thanks so much for tuning in to Jumble Think. It means the world to me that you would listen, and I hope today's show's educated you, it's encouraged you, and it's challenged you to create an amazing new future of the dreams and ideas inside of you. Now it's your turn to get out there, to dream big, and to change the world around you.
Étirez-vous doucement, mais complètement. En avant, en arrière, sur les côtés. Vous êtes une autre personne. Les mères de famille, les enfants, peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant. Dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps, vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.